Patrick, how did you find Carnivore?
I didn't find it, it found me. Um, so the story is it's very interesting. So I come from, well, my background is extremely versatile. When I was a kid, I grew up with my family in a kind of, I'm from Europe, originally from Holland. My parents were really in love with France and the French way of eating and drinking. So there was always heaps of alcohol, nothing like alcoholic wise, but just lots of wine and drinks and big heavy meals. And this is how I grew up. And this for me was the normal way of eating. I was always a very skinny kid, so it never affected me in the sense that I became a big boy, if you wish. But then in my mid 30s, I lived in Thailand. I lived there for 11 years and I did a lot of Thai boxing, purely recreational, never been in a fight or anything, but just for purely for fun. And I started to realize that my recovery was really crap. And I'd never made the link that maybe what I eat has anything to do with my recovery. So through a friend of mine, I got introduced into nutrition. And this person gave me, those nutrition books called Nutrition for Dummies, the 101, the yellow and black books. Yeah. So she gave that to me and I read it and I was like, oh, okay. So basically what it says is that what you put in your body is quite important for your health. Then I met the mother of my son, which was about 15 years ago, and she was already really into health, but more in the vegan kind of style health. She's an acupuncturist, and already based upon that Nutrition for Dummies book, which kind of made me realize maybe I should be looking at my food a little bit better in order for my Thai boxing recovery. She then introduced me into what I came to believe for a long time, the real health thing. So I became a vegan. No, I started off kind of vegetarian. Let's bring it back a little bit. I started looking at my food. I started to eat more greens. Which was definitely an improvement compared to what I was eating before, because that was just junk. So I started to eat more greens. I had gained quite a bit of weight eventually, because as you get older, even when you're a skinny dude, eventually the weight starts packing up. So I'd gained quite a bit of weight. So when I met her and I started eating more greens, I started to lose some weight. I started to feel better. Of course, I started to feel better because I started to eat at least whole foods. And then eventually, through friends of her, I got introduced into veganism and especially into raw veganism. So they showed me, you must have heard of it, Dave, this book called The China Study. Have you heard of The China Study by T. Colin Campbell? Right. So this is the vegan Bible, right? I read The China Study and I was like, oh my God, this is the missing link. Meat is the devil incarnated. I should drop all the meat. And remember, I came from a family with lots of big meals and lots of meat, of course, and normal meats and organ meats. And, as a child, I would eat already frog legs and I would eat kidney and I would eat liver and all these things. But of course, with big sauces and lots of French fries and whatever came with it. But now all of a sudden I came to realize, oh my God, I'm doing it all. I'm doing it all wrong. Meat is the devil incarnated. So I dropped all the meat. And I started preaching it, because when you're a vegan, you need to preach. No, that's maybe a little bit nasty towards vegans, but I did believe, like, oh my God, I found the holy grail of health. So I want all the people that I love to be healthy. So now I told my family how evil milk was and that they should stop eating meat. And as long as they did and they drank green juices, they would just live forever. Um, These friends that introduced me also into this book were raw vegans. So they convinced me that actually eating raw food was the best thing to do. Because the moment you might know how the whole raw movement thinks, the moment you heat it up above 40, food above 40 degrees, you start to lose vital nutrients. So you need to eat it all raw. It's like, okay, makes sense. So I started eating raw food. the most insane massive salads. Like you would spend an hour cutting everything super small because otherwise you can't chew it. These massive salads. I, of course, lost an enormous amount of weight, which was very easy for me anyway, because my genetics is quite a skinny dude. Um, and I did that for a while. And then her and we split up. No, I should say something, actually, a very important thing. We lived in Thailand. And I have a background as a dive instructor. I've organized motorbike holidays through the north of Thailand. This is all like between 2000 and 2010. Eventually, I managed a bunch of beach bars. So there was a lot of drinking, a lot of partying involved. But when I met her, that kind of all died out. She got pregnant. I became a little bit more of an adult. So I kind of stopped the drinking mostly. And I started my vegan trip with her. And then we started a juice bar. We were on a tiny little island in Thailand and we started a juice bar. We called it Living Juices because the idea behind drinking green juices is that you're drinking a living juice. It's all alive. All the kale and the spinach and the carrots and everything is alive. So living juices. And that became really popular because we were the first ones on the island to offer something like this. And people started to catch on to this slow juicing green juices. Because I got so much into nutrition and I started to believe that this was the way forward, I followed a study in integrative nutrition with the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in the States. You might have heard of them, for a year's health coaching. And so I became a health coach. And now we had this juice bar, which then turned more into a restaurant because we started to do health foods as well and fruit salads and things. Because, of course, in the tropics, you have some absolutely amazing fruits. I started to work as a health coach. I started to preach. I found my way to preach veganism. So now I started to work with all these people from the juice bar. You know, they come in, they're like hot leads, aren't they? They come in for a green juice and you go like, oh, you're interested in green juice. And then you got this conversation rolling. And then it's, in a way, I wouldn't say quite easy, but you got this little hook into your health coaching program because the majority, of course, is not so healthy. So I became this vegan preacher, if you wish. Should have registered an email address at the time. Then me and her split up. We moved back to Europe, mostly because of our son. We wanted to be closer to the family. She's from the UK. I'm from Holland. We wanted to be closer to the family. We moved back to Europe. We moved to Ibiza, where I still am. I've been here for 11 years. Still a little bit of sunshine. It's not as warm as Thailand, but it's a pretty okay middle ground, if you wish. We split up. I kind of continued. I wasn't so much a strict vegan anymore. I did become more vegetarian because, you know, my 30 years of conditioning from my childhood and eating meat kind of started creeping back up onto me. But I still had this cognitive issue with like, yeah, but meat is bad for you. Meat is going to give me cancer. Meat is going to give me heart disease. Heart disease runs in our family. My granddad died of heart disease. My dad had his first heart attack when he was 42 years old. He survived. He's still alive. But by now he's had a stroke already. He's had a triple bypass. So he's got lots of heart issues, but he's still going strong. So I was still thinking, I can't eat too much meat. So I really limited the amount of meat that I ate, and I would eat just massive amounts of greens. And in the summer, still massive salads. And yeah, I would put some eggs in, and sometimes some feta cheese or so, but it would be mostly greens. It was all based on greens, because that's healthy. All right, that's the background of the story. A good friend of mine who lived in Portugal a few years ago, we're talking now 2023, he sent me a video one day, the video from Anthony Shafee, the presentation where he says plants are trying to kill you. And he sends it to me and he's like, what do you think of this? And I watched it and I thought, this guy's bonkers. What? I had such a resistance to even consider that plants could be an issue. that I listened to this. I was like, all right, well, this guy lost the plot. So I kind of completely ditched it. But this friend who sent it to me, he he dealt in the past with a lot of mental issues. He became keto through the algorithm. Things started feeding him carnivore, because once you start looking on YouTube for keto, eventually it starts sneaking in, of course, carnivore stuff. And he turned carnivore, and it changed his life. So I went to visit him, and now we're talking April 2023. So coming up 3 years, coming April, March, actually, doesn't matter. So I visited him, and he was like, listen, I eat full carnivore. Do you want to join me? I was like, you know what? Because I saw how well he was doing. I was like, you know what? 1 week, again, my background, I like meat. So I was like, all right, let's just do it. So I ate 1 week full carnivore, not a single carb, not a single vegetable. He was super, super, super strict. It wasn't so much lion, because there was also pork and bacon, but it was super strict. Just drank water and just ate meat. Oh my God, Dave, after that week, when I flew back home to Ibiza, I was buzzing. I didn't know what to do with my energy. It was crazy. I got home here. I'm sitting at home, so I'm looking around. I got home and I was like, oh my God, I need to do something with this energy. Now, what I didn't tell you before, when I lived in Thailand at the time that I did Thai boxing, I discovered CrossFit as well. And I really enjoyed that type of high intensity exercise, body weights, push ups, pull ups, squats. So I was like, okay, I need to do something with my energy. What I'll do is every time I get up from my chair, because my job by trade now the past 10 years has been web design, so I sit a lot. But when I get up from my chair to go to the fridge, or to go to the toilet, or to do whatever, I'll just do 10 push-ups. I'll just do 10 push-ups. Well, I did that for a few days. Like, well, that's nothing. I'll just do 10 push-ups and 10 squats. So slowly, within a few weeks, that kind of made me realize maybe I should just start a real um, workout routine, because I like these types of workouts. So of course, by now it's 2023, you can easily find an app on your phone that gives you like a whole structured body weight workout routine. So I started doing that. Now, diet wise, when I came back home, I continued carnivore, but there was so much there was so much cognitive dissonance that I couldn't drop the veggies. In the years before, I would drink 4 massive green juices per week. I have my own, I brought it from Thailand, my slow juicer. I would drink my green juices. So I still kept on having my green juices. I still kept on eating vegetables, because my mind just, I couldn't. You had to eat vegetables. But over time, and now we're talking maybe like 3 or 4 months or so, I started to eat fewer and fewer vegetables. I started to learn about oxalates. I stopped drinking green juices, because what I had been doing, luckily without any issue, I've been drinking oxalate juice for years, because I would put kale and I would put spinach, and everything was raw, and the greener the better, and I would barely put any fruit juice in, because I understood already the problems with sugar, so hardly any fruit juice. So I would just drink straight up these bitter vegetable juices, because hey, it's good for you. So to just ditch that in my daily life for good, that was too big of a step. I had to take baby steps. So that, in combination with my workouts, because by the time I started to become vegan 10, 15 years ago, and the years following, all that weight that I had packed on, which was unhealthy weight, dropped. And I became this super, and you can see it on my Instagram. I got one photo there from 2019. Dave, I, I mean, I don't want to say it here in public, but I look like I came out of some labor camp. It's terrible. I don't know if you've ever seen that photo, but I cannot believe people didn't tell me at the time, like, Patrick, you look like you're about to die. I was, I'm 1 meter 76, and I was like 62 kilos. I was skin and bones. Now, I started to gain a little bit of more weight in the years after, when I started, especially to eat more carbs. I had a girlfriend who liked her sweets and stuff, so I started kind of snacking on that. But it was not until I started carnivore that my body actually was like, oh my God, I'm getting proper nutrition. And I started to balance out my weight, which meant in my case, gaining weight where everybody is losing weight. I was gaining weight to find, like what nature does, homeostasis. That, in combination with my workouts, just made my body change. Like in okay, I was skinny, or quite skinny already, so it wasn't very difficult. But within 3 or 4 months, I had like, yeah, what you could call a six pack, or at least a four pack. Maybe the last two ones you couldn't see, but you could. And by then I was 49 years old, so I wasn't 25. So I started to pack on muscle and therefore weight. I started to feel great. And this continued. I kept on. My girlfriend. I got my girlfriend into it. She is carnivore, or I would say animal based. I'm not 100% strict carnivore, but we'll get to that later. She became carnivore. She started doing workouts. We are both just absolutely buzzing. So that continued for about a year until I visited my friend in Portugal again. And he's like, "Oh my God, man, you look absolutely fantastic." I was like, thank you so much for introducing me into this, because this has been the biggest change in my life ever. So he's like, why don't you start helping others with it? You did your coaching degree, whatever you want to call it, but you got your coaching license through integrative nutrition. I like helping people. I like teaching. I was a dive instructor for a long time. Even before that, in my early 20s, I worked for an American software company, and I trained resellers in our product. So I like teaching, and I'm fine speaking in front of groups. So he was like, why don't you start helping people? You are the best example yourself that this is working. I was like, actually, that's another another brilliant idea. Thank you. So last year, when was this? Around this time last year, I started setting up my coaching business, and I started basically reaching out to people in my Instagram. But the thing is, I'm still doing web design, which pays the bills, because I live on a very expensive island. So I need to make money to pay the bills, to pay my son's school, to pay my daily ribeyes, which is really not, it's not a cheap diet if you eat ribeye every day, which is what I do. And I eat 3 times a day, because most people eat on carnivore only eat once a day. I eat 3 times a day. Yeah, because I have to. It's amazing. I'm just hungry morning, lunch, and dinner. Not in between, but sometimes I can do it 2 meals a day if I don't train in the morning, but I train most mornings. Yeah, I have 3 meals a day. So yeah, I still need to pay for those bills. So I started this coaching business. That's what I'm doing now. I'm sure we can talk about that later. But this is where I'm at now. I should say, though, that I started to notice that I have a tendency to be extreme, because I was extreme vegan, extreme raw vegan. I was I was this newly convert preaching to the world that this is the holy grail to health. And then I noticed that I started to do this with carnivore as well. I was like, okay, it's interesting, because it was almost like a spiritual journey in a way. I just saw with what was happening within me, if you wish. So it's like, okay, I'd love to be nuanced. I know what works for me. For me, it works from calorie wise, 95% comes from animal protein, but I do have avocado. I also love avocado. I do have some berries.
Right. So what does a typical day of eating look like for you if you are having those 3 meals?
Okay. So for breakfast, first of all, because I'm dealing with a heart issue which is not diet related. I'm dealing with atrial fibrillation, which is basically, I'm in a recovery phase, but basically what happened is I have an issue where there is a electrical there no, there is not. There can be an electrical imbalance between my vagus nerve and my heart, which is exercise induced. To make it sound really cool, my body chills out too quickly. If I exercise real hard and my heart rate goes sky high, it drops so fast when I stop exercising that there is an imbalance in the signals that the lower chambers of my heart and the upper chambers of my heart get, and my heart starts fibrillating. And when that happens, that's a scary thing. So part of my recovery now is that I shouldn't train fasted, which I always did. It's just not so good in my particular case to train fasted. So in the morning, I have a decaf coffee with heavy cream and collagen and half a scoop of protein powder. That's kind of that's not my breakfast. That's my pre-workout coffee, if you wish. Then once I've done my workout, I make a smoothie with protein powder, with creatine, and I use quite a bit because I've heard about all the mental benefits of creatine. I'm not necessarily using it for muscle, but especially for mental clarity. And then I have a handful of berries and a banana, and then I use again full fat cream. I don't use milk. I use full fat cream and water. That's kind of my breakfast, if you wish, after a workout. Then for lunch, well, it depends, but it's either minced meat, a big bowl of minced meat with eggs, an avocado, and some sauerkraut. Sometimes some halloumi. I love halloumi because it's so nice and salty. I don't know if you're familiar with it. This Cypriotic cheese, but it's brilliant. Or I make a burger, an organic, a grass-fed burger, with bacon and with goat cheese, and I put also some avocado, and I put some. What else did I put on there? A fried egg, like basically a big burger patty without the bun, of course. Something like that. Sometimes some smoked salmon, but now is the problem, of course, with salmon and farmed salmon that is full of crab. So, it's a hard landscape to navigate because I would love to eat everything organic. I would love to eat everything grass-fed and pastured, but it doesn't exist here on the island. And if it does, I can't afford it. It's it's already like a ribeye every day is a lot. If I was to eat a grass-fed ribeye, man, I'd love to, but I can't. So I try to find the best balance that I can. My burgers are organic. I get all my meat from the butcher, not from the supermarket, which which at least makes me feel I'm doing a good job or a better job because I don't want to touch the supermarket food. So that's my lunch. And then for dinner, often I make bone broth, which I might have in the afternoon if I just fancy something salty. I do yoga every day. Sometimes before yoga, I have a bone broth. And then for dinner, I basically have an absolutely insane massive ribeye. So like a 700 gram ribeye. Um, Sometimes once a week with some liver, not too much liver because of the vitamin A overload. Because I don't like eating small pieces of liver. If I eat liver, I'd like to eat like a proper amount of liver, and fried eggs. And then once a week, I also eat some kidneys. I love kidneys. There, I use some garlic and red onion and lots of heavy cream, and stir fried in the pan. What else? Oh, I make ossobuco in kind of a stew. I bought a pressure cooker, which is, to anybody who's listening, invest in a pressure cooker. It's the best investment you could possibly do for your bone broth, for your stews and stuff. So I buy like a big lump of ossobuco of course, with the bone in it. I let the butcher cut it up, and I make like a stew, which is delicious. That's what I would have for dinner, and that's kind of on rotation. And I got a 14-year-old son, and still, I mean, this is going on for 2.5, 3 years. Still, he looks at me, he's like, Papa, are you never getting bored of a ribeye? I was like, I never, ever get bored of a ribeye. I am looking forward to it every single time. And I said, and I don't know how either. I don't know. I can't explain. I can only tell you what is happening. I can't tell you why it's happening. Perhaps it's because my body knows that what I'm feeding it is nutritious and therefore it wants it. But that's the only thing I can think, but I can tell you I never get bored of it. Because this, of course, is what a lot of people think. Like on carnivore, you only eat meat. So boring. For me, it's not because I feel amazing. So this must be the feedback loop for my body. Like, feed me the same stuff because it works. And
Mm.
that's what I'm doing. So, yeah, that's my dinner. And
I
then
I
sometimes if
think
I
oh,
say
so
again,
sorry to interrupt. I think that, regarding the people who think it would be boring, they think it's boring because they live in a different world to someone who's eating like this, right? So they can't understand what the change that happens in your body, that's just like your body now sees food as more of a functional thing, not entertainment.
yes, that that is true. But even my taste buds, because that's why everybody, of course, binges on so much food because it's also the taste. Everything is hyper palatable. But for me, a ribeye is hyper palatable. I always try to get ribeyes with a big, like the cap of fat on it, and then I fry the fat first. I put it sideways in the pan. I fry that first until the fat is really nice and crispy, and then I fry the ribeye. The taste of that fat, like it's a taste explosion in your mouth. How can you how can you ever get bored of that? It's impossible. It's impossible.
So, have you? I imagine, having spent so much time as a vegan, and running those businesses in Thailand, you must still have a lot of friends from that part of your life. Have you kind of, with those friends, have you kind of lost your, I don't know, your social card with them or something? Like, have they? Do they feel like you've gone over to the dark side?
Yeah, no, because none. I think that me and my partner at the time, we were kind of the only real vegans on the island. We got people into thinking about healthier food because at least that's what we managed. We managed to get a lot of people to think about their food choices. So even though the veganism might not have been the healthiest thing, I'm also not the person to say, like, well, veganism is bad, in the sense that, like, at least you're eating whole foods. So you make people reconsider their food choices from packaged foods and high sugar foods to vegetables. But I think we were the only ones who were as strict about nutrition. So it was not like I had I had collected a group of vegan friends around me who then kind of ostracized me by the time I became carnivore. In fact, here on the island, one of my best friends, he is a longtime vegan, and he hated me not being vegan. Not only not being vegan, eventually become being part of the dark side, the carnivore side, right? But we get along extremely well, so our friendship lasted. So here's this vegan, and it's always makes for a joke, like there's a vegan and a carnivore walking into a bar. Um, but we are really good friends, so that didn't really we just didn't have the nutritional debate because and he was very much he was because he's not anymore very much an ethical vegan, which I also understand. I understand this part from veganism where vegans are like, yeah, but the way we treat animals is terrible. Totally true. I mean, I would love to see everything as regenerative farming. I would love to see all the cows happily in the meadows. It would make my heart sing much more as well because I know what we're doing in the meat industry, even in Europe. And I don't know what it's like in your side of the world, but it could be much prettier than it is. So I totally get them. I totally get it. But eventually he came around and he is not a carnivore. But about a year ago, we had his first steak together and we made it a whole kind of ceremony. And he ate the steak and he was like, oh my God, this is so good. It's like, yes, it is. So he's the the last and I think the only vegan friend, but he's not vegan anymore. And he even has a V tattooed on his wrist because he was so militant vegan, and now he doesn't know what to do with it.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, um, you've been eating this way for about 2.5, 3 years?
Yep, that's right.
Right. And so you can't see any reason that you would go back or
No,
moderate at all?
no, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there are times that I do eat more vegetables. Like, you give you an example. Last year, I went on holiday with my family-in-law. We went to this beautiful resort in Egypt, and it was this all-you-can-eat buffets. And unfortunately, the meat selection was very limited, but the salad selection was really big. So I ate more salads, but I feel it straight away. I get bloated. I get, weirdly enough, because everybody says you need fiber to poo. When I eat fiber, I get constipated. I don't know if that's your experience, but when I eat fiber, I eventually I eventually had to start taking spoonfuls of olive oil so that I could go to the toilet. I was completely jammed by eating fiber. So I know it doesn't work for me anymore. I don't believe anymore I need it. This cognitive dissonance, that has completely cleared. I don't think anymore I need vegetables to be healthy because I've proven to myself now that I don't need it, because otherwise I wouldn't feel as good as I do. Because what's the best feedback? It's how your body feels. And if I was malnourished, if I was on a deficiency of any vitamin or any mineral, I would notice it, because especially I'm turning 52 early next year. These things, you feel them in your body. When you're 25, you can ruin your body and just shake it off and you feel fine. But when you're in your 50s, you can't do that anymore. So if I needed vegetables, if I was really lacking something, I would have already noticed, you know? Second of all, I know I don't need the fiber. Third of all, I know it makes me bloated. So for me, it's purely backup food if there's truly nothing else there, because I don't mind the taste. There's some vegetables I really like, and I do like the crispy, the crispy feeling, the freshness of whatever tomatoes or iceberg lettuce. So once in a while, I'll do it. I mean, I might get, like I said, I might get ostracized by some really militant carnivores, but I've spoken about this on my Instagram channel as well, that I really don't like militant carnivores either. You do what feels best for you, but no, I will not go back to eating. I will not go back to eating crap. That's for sure. I will not go back to to green juices. Oh my God. I didn't know there would ever be a day I would
You
say that.
you dodged a bullet with the oxalates.
Holy smokes, right? I did. And I didn't realize that until later when I learned about oxalates. Like, the amount of I would get fresh spinach from an organic farm here, and it would just go in by the handful into that juicer with kale and everything. It's amazing. I never got any oxalate dumping when I started carnivore. I never got the keto flu when I started carnivore. I mean, I'm really blessed. Thank you. That when I started carnivore from day one, I only felt benefits. I only felt great. I never craved any sweets. I never had any of the issues that I would say the majority of people have when they turned carnivore. Maybe it was because I wasn't eating a lot of processed foods anyway. So maybe my body was already cleaner. Yes, I was eating a lot of vegetables, but I wasn't coming off Twinkies and I don't know, all the other crap that a lot of people in the Western world. I never drank Coke or Fantas or Sprites or any of these things. So maybe my body was already cleaner and that helped me. I don't know. It's all speculation.
Right. Um, so, and you mentioned your girlfriend is like, maybe she's not carnivore, but she's kind of more was like keto or something?
Well, she's more like me. I mean, I wouldn't.
Alright, right.
Okay, so here's the thing. When I started looking into carnivore, I came to realize, because, like I said, I got myself onto Instagram because I started my coaching practice, and there was all these carnivores, and then it was all like carnivore, and wow, you had one blueberry, you're not a carnivore, you're a bad boy, and I was like, ooh, this is very militant. So I started looking into carnivore, and then I found out that there's actually two types of carnivores, right? There's the facultative carnivores and there's the obligate carnivores. And obligate carnivores are like lions and cats, a lot of these cat types, that basically they cannot digest vegetables. They just can't. They have to eat meat. because otherwise they die. And then you got the facultative carnivores that get more than 70% of their caloric intake from animal products, but they can survive on vegetables, and even dogs are like that. And and then I remembered, like, it's true, like in Thailand, a lot of the stray dogs, they get the scraps, they get the fried rice with chicken, they get the leftover pad thai, they get all the leftover food. They weren't great, they weren't doing necessarily great, but they were surviving. So I was like, that's interesting. So there is a type of carnivore that can survive on a diet that has less meat and more plant matter, but they don't necessarily thrive on it. And in my opinion, even though the whole world thinks we are omnivores, and of course the true carnivores believe that we are apex carnivores, I stand a little bit more in the middle. I don't think we're omnivores, but I do think we are facultative carnivores. So yes, my idea is we thrive on meat, but we can survive on plants, which basically means, for me and my girlfriend, coming back to your question, we eat mostly animal products, but if we do eat like a bite of salad or some tomatoes or something, it's okay. It's not gonna do us harm, because our body, in my opinion, can deal with some plant matter. And it depends per person, of course. Some people can. Some people eat a tomato, especially nightshades, and they feel absolutely terrible. This is what you need to check in with yourself. But I've got a strong system, as we've seen with the oxalates in the spinach, so I can deal with some of these things. So if my mouth fancies this, I'll do it. I'm not going to be militant. So, and this is the same for her. But yes, we will not touch seed oils, and we will not touch any processed foods either.
And
We're
I
just not
get
doing it.
and I guess you're not sitting there eating ears of corn and stuff like that, right?
I don't eat corn anyway. Corn is not a food, man. I've never thought corn was a food. Never. Not even when I was a vegan.
Yeah,
Like, and
I
I don't know.
I 100% agree with you on that. I definitely.
Yeah, same with tofu. Even when I was a vegan, tofu is not food. And soy is one of those things that I came to realize my body cannot digest soy. If I eat soy, man, I won't tell you what happens.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of soy. I think anything that once you take it out the packet, it looks like a wet sponge you've just done the dishes with. It doesn't belong in your stomach, you know? Um,
Ugh.
so, um, so can you talk a little bit about the coaching that you do? Is it specifically around nutrition, or do you also do like training?
Yeah. So my coaching is based, it's still evolving because I only started last year. So this may be quite interesting as well, because you see how a business evolves. I started purely as carnivore and fitness. That was my name at the time, carnivore and fitness. So basically doing what I do and help people with that same program, because I knew that worked for me. And then through the feedback I get from people, I can tweak it. But I'm not a PT. I'm not a personal trainer. I don't have any license in that. I mean, I've been doing daily workout, well, not daily, but 4 times a week workouts myself for the past 2.5, 3 years. So I have a bit of an understanding, but I don't have a qualification in it. And people started to see me as a fitness coach as well. And I was like, okay, I need to back away from that, because yes, I want fitness to be part, and especially, if possible, body weight fitness, because I started focusing on 40 people over 40, and it's just easier, especially when you've never done anything, to get injured when you start lifting weights. I wanted people to start with body weight. It's just less injury prone. But I'm not a personal trainer. So I needed to move away from that idea, which I didn't realize that people would have, that I'm a personal trainer. So I moved more into focusing on nutrition, on carnivore, but using also fitness as a tool, of course, because for me, I don't want people who are just coming in for weight loss. I want people who just want to feel awesome, not because they want to shed 20 kilos. That's a byproduct. I don't even ask people anymore how much they weigh. I don't want to know how much you weigh. I want to know your measurements, like your body measurements now, in a month, in 3 months, in 6 months. That's what I care about. I want to know whether you have to buy new clothes because you just simply the pants are falling off your ass. Those are the things that I care about. I want to see your photos in the mirror now, in a month, in 3 months, in 6 months. That's what I care about. But I don't. Weight loss is a byproduct, so I've stepped away from weight loss. But part, of course, is also, especially when you're older, as we're losing a lot of muscle, and especially women, once they go through perimenopause and then menopause, is exercise. We don't exercise enough. In my opinion, you cannot just only be healthy on a carnivore diet. You need to move your body in ways that it's supposed to be moved. So I also kind of moved away from kind of one directional movement. Let's say I'm still doing them for sure, but just doing squats and push-ups, to more functional movement, right? Where you rotate, for example, your body. Because what you want is when you're 75 years old and you have massive biceps, you don't want to have to turn your body like this when somebody talks to you. You still want to be able to just turn around quickly, because your body moves in more than one direction. It's not just up and down. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. Maybe I want to kind of turn things around a little bit, or evolve, I should say, and make it all more functional movement, but also functional carnivore. Because I came to notice, when I worked with women, men on a pure meat diet, and again, I'm talking about the majority of my clients are like late 40s, 50s, early 60s. Men, put them on a meat diet, that works amazing. Women doesn't always on a pure meat diet. For some it does, but not for all women it works. And depending on where they are in this cycle, they can really benefit from some carbohydrates. So it's like, okay, so I need to step away from being too militant myself and start working what works best with everybody. So basically become a functional carnivore. So now I had functional exercise, functional fitness, functional movement, whatever you want to call it, and functional carnivore. So I started to work with those two. And then I also, and I love it how you just see yourself evolve over time. You don't become a coach and then that's it. And that's what you do for the rest of your life. This program, you just see how things evolve. Then I, of course, came to realize what an important part sleep is as well. Because you can eat the best diet in the world. You can do the most amazing movement. But if your sleep is crap, sleep is where your body heals. Again, when you're older, even more so. So then I started to base my coaching on 3 pillars: functional nutrition, functional carnivore, functional movement, and sleep. And that's where I am now. So I'm again changing my kind of name and branding to reflect that more. So as we speak now, what are we? December 2025. I'm doing a slight rebrand. The approach is still the same. Actually, the approach has evolved. So I work one-on-one with people, in groups with people, and I have launched, but I'm still playing around with it, a self-study program, 8-week self-paced program, all based upon these 3 pillars. So functional nutrition, which is basically carnivore, but I just don't want to use the word carnivore too much in order to have a wider reach and not be banned. Functional movement and sleep. And that's what I'm doing now. And I love it because I do it myself. My sleep is amazing, has always been good, but it's even better now. I track my sleep with my Apple Watch. I analyze my sleep. I know when I'm ready to work out. I just want people, it's almost like a biohack, if you wish. If you know what your sleep is like, if you know what your nobody's heard about HRV. If you know about if you know about HRV, if you know about your TSB, if you know about all these things that a smartwatch, for example, can measure, especially again, as you're older, you know where your body is ready to grind or it needs a rest, or it needs some yoga or a light walk. And this kind of optimization of your health, especially at older age, that's what I really want to help people with. Because in the end, Dave, I just want them to feel as great as I feel. And I feel better than I've ever felt before. And hear so many people say that. I feel better than I was 30. Surely I'm older, but it's even more awesome because I have the wisdom of being older. with the energy of being young. It's the best of both worlds.
Wow. And so how can people find you on Instagram or any other place online?
Sure. Sure. So on Instagram, you can find me on functional dot health coach. On TikTok, it's also functional dot health coach. YouTube is functional health coaching. And online, my website is patrickalexander.coach. And that links still to my functional carnivore website today, this month, but I'm in the transition of bringing it over. But because I've been going through these changes, I would like people, when they watch this video in a year's time, not go like, oh, all the links are broken. So patrickalexander.coach will be my main domain name. If you're watching this live or pretty much live, you will be redirected. If you watch this in a few months, that's where you find me.
Awesome. I'll link to all of those in the show notes.
Amazing.
Patrick, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and experience. I really appreciate your time.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me here, Dave. And yeah, everybody could feel just so much better. And this is my goal. I just want to make people feel better than they've ever felt before, because you don't realize how good feeling great feels until you feel it. Most people don't realize how crappy they feel until they feel good. And that's just my goal. So the more I can talk about this with people like you or anybody, or even at parties, I talk to people. Whenever I find a little opening in a conversation, I'll just try to sneak it in and see if there's opening within someone. Again, I don't want to preach, but if there's an opening within someone to improve their lives, I want to help them out with it. So having these conversations like with you, it's amazing, because, man, everybody should feel amazing, and everybody has every reason to feel amazing, and everybody has the opportunity to feel amazing as well.